Python provides a built-in way for parsing structured data, such as HTML, as well as other kinds of data like we just saw previously with JSON. In this example, we're going to see how to create our own HTML parser based on the HTML parser class that Python provides. So let's go ahead and open HTML parsing _ start. And you can see that what I've done here is I've already created my main function, and I've got a variable called parser, and I'm instantiating a myHTMLParser class, and I've created a starting point for that class up here, which we will fill out with our logic. I've also imported the HTML parser class that we need from the HTML parser module, and I'm creating a subclass of the existing HTML parser class that we've imported. And we'll come back to this in a moment. So in the main function, I already have the code needed to open an HTML file and parse it. Now, I could have just used URLlib to open a URL and read the HTML data straight from the web. In this case, I'm going to simply open up a sample file that we have right here called sample HTML, and we've already seen how to do this in the files chapter earlier in the course. And if we look at this file for a moment, we can see it's a pretty basic HTML file. There's a head and a body. In the head, we've got a title tag, and we've got some paragraph tags and a comment. So it's just a skeleton HTML file that we're going to use to test out the parser. So once the file has been read into memory, we're going to pass the contents of the file to our parser class. And our parser class has this function called feed, and we're going to pass in the string that represents the entire HTML, and the parser is going to work on it. So when you pass the HTML content to this feed function, it's going to take the HTML and run through it line by line. And each time it encounters a specific kind of data inside the HTML, like comments or tags or whatever, the parser is going to call functions that you override in your subclass. That's these functions here. So you don't call these functions directly. The parser is going to call them for you as it is processing the HTML, and then your code just responds to the type of data that's being processed. So in this case, for example, when the parser comes across a comment, it's going to call my handle comment method, and it's going to pass the text data that's inside the comment. So let's go ahead and fill out this function. What we're going to do is write out that we encountered a comment, and we'll print the data inside the comment. And then I'm going to have a variable called pause, and I'm going to call the getPause function on the parser. And this function will come back with two values, the line number and the character position that the parser was at when it came across this data. So then we'll also print that out as well. We'll simply print at line, and it's going to be pause 0 for the line, and the character position, which is going to be pause sub 1. So let's go ahead and save what we have right now, and let's run it. So if we look back in the HTML file, we can see that there's only one comment, and it says this is a comment inside. So that's what we should see in the output. So let's go ahead and right-click and run this. And sure enough, there's our output. It says encounter comment. There's the text data at line 7, position 4. Is that right? Yeah, line 7, yep, and indented by 4 spaces. Okay, so far so good. All right, let's go ahead and close that terminal, and let's go ahead and fill out the rest of our functions. So let's go ahead and fill out handle data, because it's basically the same as one of the comments. So I'll just simply copy this code right here and paste it down in handle data, and I'll just simply encounter text data as the comment. So the only difference here is that we only want to print actual text content and skip over white space lines. And I'll use Python to make sure that the string doesn't just consist of entirely white space by using the isSpace function. So what I'll do is I'll write if data.isSpace, then I'll just simply return. So we won't print out just white space. All right, so that just leaves the handle start tag function, and this function gets called when the closing angle bracket of an opening tag is reached. So for example, if we look inside the HTML, when the parser gets to, say, this closing angle bracket, right, on this whole tag, that's when the start tag function will be called, because it's the starting tag. Down here we have the closing HTML tag, and up here we have the starting one. So right when it reaches this angle bracket, it's going to call that. And start tags can have attributes on them, which we can see right here. This one has a language attribute, this anchor tag has an href attribute, and they get passed into the adders argument here on the function. So let's go ahead and fill in the code for this function, and it starts out just the same as the others, so I'll go ahead and print those lines. So I'll copy and paste those lines here, and I'll just change comment to encounter the start tag instead. And instead of data, we have tag. Okay, and the position will remain the same. But there's two things I want to do in addition. So, for example, let's suppose I wanted to count the total number of paragraph tags in the file. So I'm going to make a global variable. And again, there's plenty of ways to do this. I'll just demonstrate it this way. So I'll make a global variable called paragraphs, and I'll initialize that to 0. And then in my code, to handle the start tag, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that there's a global variable named paragraphs. And then I'm going to check to see if the tag argument is equal to the letter P. Because again, you look at HTML, there's paragraph tags right here. So I want to count those. So if the tag name is P, then I'm going to increment paragraphs by 1. And then I need to print the results down here in the main function. So I'll write out print, and I'll say paragraph tags, and I'll print out paragraphs. Okay. The other thing I want to do is print out any attributes that tag has on it. And remember, in HTML, only start tags can have attributes. So the attributes are passed in this adders array here. So I just need to check to see if there are any attributes by checking the length of that collection, and then printing them out if there are any. So if the length of adders is greater than 0, then I'm going to print out attributes, and I'm going to loop over each one. So for A in the adders list, I'm going to print, and I'll indent by a tab, and I'm going to print out the attribute name, which is going to be the 0 position of that element, separated by an equal sign, and then the second member of that array, and that's going to be the value. So in this case, we're going to see lang equals en, and we'll see href equals /contact, assuming our code works, of course. So let's save all of this, and then let's run the app one more time. And so here in the output, let's take a look. So we can see, starting at the top, right, so the HTML tag comes first, and that's at line 2, position 0, and we can see that there are attributes. And sure enough, there's the lang equals en, and then there's the head and the title, and then inside the title we have the text data, right? And there's our comment from before. And so we skip on down, and we can see that all the way at the end, we counted 2 paragraph tags. Well, is that right? Yes, there's 2 paragraph tags. Okay, so it looks like everything worked properly. So this is a basic example of using Python to process HTML by building your own HTML parser subclass based on the HTML parser class provided by the Python standard library. Maybe take a few minutes here and play around with this, try out some different things on your own, experiment, and learn more about how the parser class works.